what we have now is clearly a disaster in the city of Philadelphia. You've got 36 to 40 homes, according to the mayor, that have now been destroyed. He says at this point no lives have been lost. It's difficult to see how this thing can be concluded without loss of life. No other way to end this? These people really constitute that much of a threat?
That's correct, Ted. They did the same thing this year that they did in 1978. In 1978, they tried to negotiate with them. They had police out there. They had Monsignor Devlin, Walt Palmer from a group similar to the Crisis Intervention Group. They tried negotiation. They were out there. The police were exposed negotiating with them, and during that period of time, shots rang out. A policeman was killed. 4 other policemen were almost killed. This was a confrontation that MOVE sought. They said that they were going to do this in 1978, and they said it again in 1985.
All right, if we could turn the clock back just a few hours, though. I mean, here they are. The worst thing I've heard said about them, beyond the fact clearly that they have weapons and that they are dangerous when attacked, the worst I've heard said is that there was human and dog feces around the place and that the kids are living there under what can most charitably be described as unsanitary conditions. Is that the worst?
No, sir, it goes much deeper than that. They had threatened the neighbors. There were valid arrest warrants for terroristic threats, for having guns, for threatening people. There were threats made against the police as well as the neighbors on the block. There was statements made by the MOVE people themselves that they would cause a confrontation, that they had tunneled into other areas where they were going to blow up the block and blow up the rest of the neighborhood, and that they wanted this confrontation. They had arrest warrants which were being served. The people resisted the serving of those arrest warrants, and that's when the confrontation began. After the initial shooting this morning, there was a lull all day in which negotiations could have taken place, but no one came out. As Mr. Swan said, they had no fallback position. Their position was, you release the 9 or 10 defendants who were convicted of murder in 1978, you release them from jail because we feel, in their own mind, that they were improperly convicted.
All right, Mr. Swans, Judge Nauer, thank you both very much.
Thank you, sir.
When we come back, we'll talk live with civil rights attorney William Kunstler and with Frank Bowles, an expert in hostage negotiations. Here now is the very latest information that we have. The Philadelphia Fire Department says that the fire in Philadelphia in that 36-house area, 40-house area, was brought under control at 11:42 Eastern Time. Philadelphia police say that they have 2 of the adult residents of that house now in custody. 2 are still at large. They plan to engage in an investigation of the house in what they call a labyrinth of tunnels under that house beginning tomorrow morning at first light. Joining us live now in our New York studios is civil rights attorney William Kunstler. He has frequently defended members of radical groups. And Frank Bowles, former head of the New York City Police Department hostage negotiating team, now involved in training crisis negotiators. Mr. Kunstler, can you see any, well, go ahead, second guess what the Philadelphia authorities have done?
Ted, I think they moved too fast, even though they say there's been a year and a half of negotiations and a year and a half of problems. They know this is a group which is quick to anger. They know of the paranoia that resulted when John Africa, one of the leaders of the group, was beaten by Philadelphia policemen in that shootout in 1978. And while I sympathize with Wilson Goode, whom I believe I represented against then Police Commissioner Rizzo many years ago in Philadelphia, I think they knew the problems here, and there's sometimes you got to just lay the black letter of the law down and let things wait. I worried at Attica when they moved too fast, and we all know in this city with Mrs. Bumpers and another eviction case, you had a similar problem, not as widespread.
But let's take a parallel problem, which is precisely the situation you referred to back in 1978. In 1978, Lord knows they waited as long as one could possibly wait. They mounted a blockade. They tried to starve them out for 55 days, and at the end of it, the result was essentially the same. Not the kind of fire we have today, but violence, policemen being killed, firemen being injured, policemen being injured. I mean, there is a history now, and that history does not speak well of MOVE.
I know, but Ted, that very history was one that should have made them wait here. They knew of the history, and knowing of it, I think it was foolish to try to evict them today, and the real thing was to try to evict them. Talking about arrest warrants and so on is sort of meaningless. They went in to take them out of there. Move knew they were going to be evicted. They knew what happened in 1978. They know the hatred that many people have of them, and I think that to go in like that was a mistake, an understandable one, but a mistake.
Let me jump over to Frank Bowles for a moment. Frank, you are known as a man of extraordinary patience who, when a situation demands waiting it out, has certainly done that in the past, has counseled it in the past. Was this one of those occasions?
Well, I wasn't down there, so I don't know all of the facts. But I think what the biggest key part of this is the fact that there was gunfire coming out and automatic weapon fire coming from that particular building. Yes, we would like to wait as long as possible. As a matter of fact, we say we contain and negotiate as long as the job takes to go. But along with those options of containing and negotiate, we also have the options of the use of an assault, the use of sharpshooter, and the use of chemical agents. And not being on the scene and knowing all of the nuances, I can't say whether or not they didn't wait long enough. We have had incidents where we negotiated 5, 6, 7 hours, and then we used a diversion. And part of that was our negotiating while our assault team went in from a different direction and made the arrest, made the rescue of the people who were being held. And that's a judgment question that you have to have all of the facts. And so I don't know. I know that they did wait. Whether or not they waited long enough or whether they waited too long, we will have to see after all the facts are brought together.
All right. Explain to me, and I hear your concern about not making a judgment about something that you have not personally participated in, but the use of that, I gather it was some kind of a percussion bomb, percussion device, dropping it on the roof. What is the point of that? Because, I mean, what resulted from that, apparently, is an absolutely devastating fire that's ruined the homes of a lot of innocent people.
You're very correct there. I believe well, there are two reasons you could use that device. That's a percussion grenade. It's used as a distraction. It's used as a means whereby you can get a tremendous amount of light and a tremendous amount of sound without any shrapnel blowing around against people. It was first used against the terrorist operations in Mogadishu by the Special Air Service when they assisted GSG-9. Now that is used as a diversionary technique. Now in this particular situation, if it were used on the top to make a loud sound to have the people come from the upper part of the building out, I feel it would be done correctly in that you never want to chase people into a building and chase them up to the top floors, because once you corner them in the top floors, it becomes a shootout between the people involved. And so we always try to get the people and flush them from top down.
Let me just turn back to Bill Kunstler for a moment, and I guess the question I have is where does society's right come in here? Is society not entitled, and I'm really speaking now of that particular neighborhood, which apparently had been harassed a great deal, in some cases intimidated by these folks. Doesn't society have a right to turn to its representatives, that is the police department, and say, get rid of these people for us? They really represent a hazard to all of us.
No question about that, Ted, but when you consider that the cost of getting rid of them is the burning of 36 homes of the very people who asked perhaps the city to get rid of them, it's too high a price to pay.
Now, that does seem, Bill, to have been an accidental outgrowth of all of this. I mean, I really don't believe, and I'm not sure that you do, that percussion grenade was dropped with the intent of causing that fire.
No, I'm not even suggesting that. But the use of it, and it has an incendiary quality to it, the use of it, I think, was ill-advised. And I think that the going out with the warrant in the morning, going out with the eviction warrant, with knowing that MOVE would take that as a hostile affront and that gunshots would result from it, I think that that was a mistake. Now, like Frank, I'm not there, and I'm not on the scene, and I sympathize with Wilson Good and the problem that it must have been to him, both as a black man and as a mayor. But I think that there must be, in these special cases, society has to wait longer than they wait here. And it doesn't matter that they say there have been negotiations for a year and a half. They knew, and Wilson Good knew, the moment they sent those police out with an eviction warrant, there was going to be firing and there was going to be a potential tragedy.
Gentlemen, we're out of time. Bill Kunstler, Frank Bowles, thank you very much for coming in on such short notice. Thank you. I'll be back in a moment. Tomorrow on World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, the conclusion of a two-part series on medical malpractice suits, their skyrocketing costs and their impact on medicine. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
For a transcript of tonight's broadcast, send $2 to Journal Graphics, Box 234, Ansonia Station, New York, New York, 10023.